During the engaged section, they illustrated the effects of major floods on different features of landscape. They showed a combined class of 4th and 5th graders that pictures of large-scale flooding events, and then they were asked to identify the type of flood area in each image. They explained to them that the storms cannot always be predicted early enough to warn people in the days leading up to the flooding events. Then all the students received the basic background instruction because of the potential for limited prior knowledge of large-scale flooding events. To help the students understand why scientists use models, we engaged their prior knowledge by asking, how would you describe a model and why do scientists use them? In the Explore section, first they were asked to think about how our environment changes, how humans on Earth affect both of them. They were told that their models must protect the critical human needs illustrated during the engagement presentation and reminded them of the effects of the river system on each of these areas. Students were not allowed to protect the nature area because the goal was to engage them in thinking about how nature is affected when we choose to develop and protect our human needs. Students were given approximately 10 minutes to construct their models, and then after the students built their models, they added water as an example of the river system in 2 different steps. First, students filled their river system to the top of the riverbank and recorded the amount of water required to fill but not overflow the river. And then the second step was they added the equal amount of water to their system again to double as a flood event and seeing how much they would have to put in there. In the Explain system, 82% of the students were successful in protecting the human need they chose. This gave them confidence to share their model strategies and their results with the rest of the class. It is important to reassure the students of the purposes of this lesson to show how human needs affect nature, sometimes negatively, even though we don't always intend to. This also shows them the dramatic changes in the environment that can occur in a short amount of time. Students shared their findings within a group. To stimulate deeper discussion, we asked the students several questions, such as, what strategies were more or less effective in protecting the human needs? What would you expect to happen in the rainfall and flooding if flooding continued to happen to your landscape over a long period of time? Would your strategies still work or would you need to change them? Then they guided the students to a conclusion that although they constructed the landscape to fulfill one human need, all of the other human needs in the natural area were affected by our decisions. In the Elaborate section, during the elaboration activity, students explored a long-term and short-term effects of water to the landscape. Using the same model river system, students explored the effects of erosion and deposition on landscape over time. Because not all of the students were familiar with the process of erosion, they demonstrated them using stimulated soil mixture in a light rainfall event. Then the students were asked to use their observations about the behavior of the soil during the precipitation event to imagine what would happen if the rainfall continued for every few days for 100 years. What would the changes be? What would they expect the shape of the landscape to look like? Students then modeled the clay to reflect these changes. Finally, students repeated the flooding event from the first activity and observed what human needs were affected. Evaluate section. The goal of this lesson is for students to think critically about ways in which humans and environment affect each other over a short and long period of time. In addition to this, asking formative assessment questions, we also used pre-activity and summative assessment probes. These learning outcomes indicate a deeper and more complex understanding of human-environment interactions through time. In addition to learning science content, the students were learning that knowledge can be gained through research projects, which is an important step toward the informational writing proficiency.